It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. Affordability is the buzzword of the moment. One measure of that is how frequently people are Googling the word. Another is how expensive things have gotten. The higher prices you and I are paying for things like gas and groceries. A recent study found that about half of Americans can't afford the cost of living. More people are now going hungry than during the height of the pandemic. And this is happening as many residents, especially here in Detroit, already struggle with food insecurity. Cass Tretyak has a lot of experience helping vulnerable people access the services they need. She's an outreach navigator at Community and Home Supports in Detroit. She's also studying for her master's in social work at Wayne State. Given she's on the ground doing this work, we wanted to ask her, how have people's needs changed over the past 6 months? And how much harder is it right now to climb out of poverty? Cass, welcome back to the Metro.
Thank you for having me.
So you divide your time getting people shelter and food stamps and other basic services. You've said that your intake is higher than usual. I'm wondering, how much has that changed since costs really began increasing over the past year?
I definitely do think it's gotten higher recently. I feel we've been seeing more folks on the street than we were previously, especially because all the shelters are always full. Even the drop-in centers, which were like extra beds that were added as part of the 7-point plan after those 2 children tragically died last year, they're always full. So I feel like we're seeing more and more folks on the street.
And the rule with shelters being full, I mean, we've had folks on the show who lead shelters and some of the shelter systems. It's that they don't turn people away. So what happens then when the shelters are full?
They turn people away. To be blunt, it's a safety thing. It's a capacity thing. You just cannot have that many people in a building. There's usually exceptions made for like extreme weather circumstances, but it means you're probably going to be sitting in a chair or like a blanket or something on the floor because they physically, literally do not have the space. But they would rather you be inside than outside getting like heat stroke or something.
So in other words, it's a lot more complicated than the response some people might have when they see folks on the streets, which is they should go to a shelter.
Yeah, it is not that easy. They are always full. Getting like a quote unquote like proper referral through like the CAM hotline is hard. And a lot of times the people working the CAM phone are really just doing like the beginning of what our intake would be. Like they do the little questionnaire and stuff with them and whatnot, but really like they probably know in the back of their mind this person's not going to get a bed because there's not availability.
And the CAM hotline is what every person who wants to access a shelter has to call first in the city. Is that right?
Yes. They will put folks on like a prioritization list. So if a bed opens up, they will contact the person again.
That sounds hard if you are struggling and maybe living on the streets. Do you even have a working phone?
More people do than you might think, actually. Phone's cheaper than a house.
That's fair.
But sometimes it can be difficult, especially if their phone only works on Wi-Fi. So like if they're sitting in like the library or whatever and make this call and then they go about their day and they aren't near Wi-Fi when CAM tries to reach out again, they're not going to know until they're on Wi-Fi again.
This sounds like a really big problem.
It can be, but a lot of it does just kind of come down to capacity. And there's so much need in the city, so much more than we're equipped to deal with, it seems.
I wonder if you could take me into one of these cases. I mean, and I should use the word into the experience of one of these people. I mean, and not just say the word cases, right? I'm wondering about a specific person or a family you've helped in the last few weeks, what they needed and what you were able to help them with.
So I'm thinking of like one person in particular, a client of mine. I'll just call him JS by his initials for the sake of his privacy. But he has been on the street for several years now. He's an older gentleman with some disabilities. And at intake, something that we'll usually do is we will ask about things like any kind of mainstream benefits, stuff like that. I had him apply for SNAP actually with me. He didn't have an email or anything, so we made him an account, which he didn't have a phone, but fun fact, you can make an account through like Proton Mail, and you don't need a phone number for that. So we made him an email and like a proper account. We at CHS have like a community partnership role with DHS. So with his consent, he added me as his navigator on there. So the moment he was approved, I knew. And since I'm working with him for housing as well, once he does get matched, the provider is probably going to want like a statement of benefits just to know he has it. I'll be able to request that like immediately right then and there. But we had him apply, and he, because he didn't have a phone at the time, consented for me to give the interview on his behalf when DHS would call. And it was really quite nice, actually, because everything is very scary and things are very expensive. And I will point out that I was double checking this morning. Detroit, according to Michigan's government website, is exempt from some of those federal changes that are affecting SNAP, like the work requirements and some of the age changes and stuff like that. Obviously, we're still affected by price, but even though it is scary that things are getting more expensive, and the $298 that JS gets a month is not going to go as far as it used to. It was kind of nice when I did the call and took the interview on his behalf. It was the Hamtramck location that I was speaking to, and there is an option to like check that you are homeless when you're applying. And she asked, "Oh, is he in a shelter?" And I said, "No. He is unsheltered, actually. He's living on the street." And I explained, I'm his case manager, da-da-da-da. And she got real quiet for a second and said, "I'm going to push this one through." And he was approved within a couple days. So it's scary, but like the people behind the systems are still people, and they do care. And if they can push it through, they will.
It's important to put a human face behind the system. Mm-hmm. You're one of those human faces as well. And what this story tells me is some hopeful things, but also some really concerning things. And one is that this person is going to get some help from the system, and it will hopefully be transformative for them. However, if they did not have your assistance in trying to access the system, what would have happened?
It's possible that he could have done it, but it would have been difficult, if only because JS is an older gentleman. He has a difficult time walking, and he actually broke his ankle recently. I met him with a street medicine team who were changing his boot and introduced me to him. And most of what money he does have usually comes from like the kindness of others. So him physically getting there definitely would have been a huge barrier because he needs to be able to get the bus ticket, which the street medicine team does carry, but they're only out twice a week, and they try to hit different sections of the city. So they see him like once a week, and that may not be sufficient enough tickets to get him there. We also could have run into the issue he didn't have his birth certificate, which I ordered for him. And had shipped to our office, and it was just something else to help prove his identity. He did thankfully have a Detroit ID, but without the birth certificate as well, he may have had a hard time proving he was who he said he was, and might have been a little SOL, to be honest.
Yeah. A lot of steps in the process here. This is not just as simple as asking for help and a wand being waved.
Because he does also frequent, like Pope Francis Center, for example. He'll like go there for breakfast and whatnot. But a lot of the different soup kitchens will close eventually. So when I was talking with him, I told him that we should do this, and he agreed because I needed to make sure that he could eat when Pope Francis isn't open and when I'm not out or when he's not seeing the nurses with street outreach teams, the street med team or anything like that. I need to know that he can eat something, you know. It makes me feel better and it's better for him.
I mean, this is all illustrative of how important your work, the work of agencies who are trying to get people the support they need, truly is. And it brings to mind a conversation that producer Sam Corey had 2 weeks ago with Ryan Hertz. He's the CEO of the local social services nonprofit Lighthouse. We wanted to know how things had been changing for his work since energy and food costs began rising.
There's more need, and we're currently really just fighting to maintain. And that's the challenge, right? Is that we already were somewhat under-resourced in the scale of need in our communities. We're seeing need increasing, and we're seeing efforts on just about every front to reduce investment in basic needs.
I'm wondering, Cass, if you agree with Ryan's claim that both the need is expanding all the while as there are attacks on the agencies trying to help people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's so right. Like, the need is expanding. Like, I need to know that JS can eat. But when we purchase some of the non-perishable food and stuff that we give out, we're paying the same prices as the client. But our grants are not necessarily changing, or they're being attacked by a certain administration. So something has to give eventually. And we're going to run into the problems that he was talking about. Like, we're paying the same prices as the clients. We might have the money, but the money will run dry faster than it would have like 2 years ago.
I'm wondering how this is changing people's outlooks. I mean, the folks that you're working with. Are you finding people to be feeling more hopeless, more depressed, more exhausted by the way things feel at this moment?
Absolutely. JS, for example, was hesitant to apply for food stamps because he's like, well, I watch the news. And I was like, I know you do, but let me worry about that. I don't want that to be a you problem. Let it be a me problem. You have enough to worry about. Or another client that I'll refer to by his initials, SC, when I first met him, I had to talk him into letting me help him with anything, because he was same thing. He was like, well, I watch the news. What happens when the money runs out? And I said, well, that's a great question, first of all, but also let that be my problem, not yours. Let's focus on right now and know that we will keep you in the loop. And like, he is housed now, because this was like a while ago. I met him around the time the administration switched over. But I told him, like, that's what we're here for, to support you and make sure that you're going to be okay, no matter what happens. There are certain, like, with certain grants and things where some of the budget attacks that they're putting through aren't actually going to take place until next year. And then from there, if different agencies or whatever have to transition, they'll need like transitional grants so that they can make the transition as they need to. And then by that point, we should have a new administration who hopefully will say, that was really dumb. Let's undo all that. So that's kind of the underlying hope that folks have, but it is scary. Like, this man almost said to me, I'd rather stay in my tent, because what happens when the money runs out? And I had to convince him, which is sad.
So it's a sense of desperation that both vulnerable people are feeling, but also folks on the front lines like yourself are feeling. I mean, it feels like there's a clock ticking. There's a level of uncertainty that is hanging above you. And meanwhile, you're doing this work in Detroit. Our city is one with one of the highest poverty rates of any big city in the country. I'm wondering what makes this work different here. The transportation or lack of it, the benefit cliffs, the neighborhoods you're covering. What is it?
I think some of what makes it different is transportation is definitely a part of it. You kind of have to have a car to get around. And if you can't have a car, or if you can't afford it, that's rough. You have to rely on the buses, which are not necessarily bad, but there's so much need and maybe not enough to go around. And Detroit also lacks density. It is a bit of a food desert. Like, it has all these extra problems that stack up on, I'm making a not great wage, my rent's kind of high, I have to use the bus. It burns into the time that you have too. So it also takes a toll, like mentally and emotionally, I think, when it takes literally the whole day to go to the grocery store, because you got to wait on the bus. You got to get your groceries, whatever you can carry or put in a cart or whatever on the bus. Then you got to wait for the bus to get home. And it's like literally the whole day where I could get in my car and go there and be done in a couple hours and have the rest of the day to like do something fun or hang out with my family or friends. Whereas not everybody gets that opportunity. I also think though the density is a problem, Detroit is also a city that has a heavy past where it's been hurt. When it feels like when the economy catches a cold, Detroit gets pneumonia. And that's very frustrating and very scary. And I do think it would also be doing a disservice to not mention the history of like deep-seated like racial segregation and Black Detroiters who have been hurt the most by this, Latino Detroiters who get hurt by this. It's rough. It is still not easy. Just because Detroit is a majority minority city doesn't necessarily mean that the folks have majority protection. They still don't. We still live in a society, and we still live in a society that is deeply classist and racist and would rather see people go hungry than feed them.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robin Vincent. My guest is Cass Tretyak. She works with vulnerable people in Detroit to connect them to social services. We're discussing how the rising cost of food and energy is impacting her clients and people's ability to rise out of poverty and into a more stable life. So you mentioned, Cass, that the SNAP work requirements that have been tightened, that those are not materializing in Michigan.
In Detroit. I checked Michigan.gov this morning just to be absolutely sure. And Detroit is one of the cities that has a federal exemption for those requirements. How long that's going to stay, I don't know. But as of now, according to Michigan.gov, Detroit, Bay City, East Point, Flint, Jackson, and Saginaw are cities with this like federal waiver that makes them exempt from those requirements. And Alcona, Alger, Aranac, I might have said that wrong, Sheboygan, Iosco, Iron, Luce, Mackinac, Montmorency, Oceana, Ogama, Osakota,
a long list
Isle.
here.
Yeah, like several. Sorry, I swear I practiced pronouncing these and I still messed them up. But on Michigan.gov, there's like a long list of like counties that are also exempt from this.
Okay.
But if they are not on those lists, then they are going to have to.
So you, of course, working with folks who are vulnerable, being on the front lines, this is very good news to you.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
But I have to put the other side to you, of course, because there are supporters of work requirements who see it as being something meant to move people toward employment and steer limited aid to the people who truly can't work. And the research on whether they actually do that is genuinely mixed. From what you see on the ground, do they push people into jobs or do they just push people off the rolls?
They just push people off of the benefits at the end of the day because, well, I have had some folks that while they're experiencing unsheltered homelessness are able to work. They're either someone who is living in their car so they can physically get there, or they are someone who is staying near usually a local smaller business who is doing them a solid and is like hired them under the table or doesn't mind them staying in like their little back alley or, whatever. Most people, when they are experiencing homelessness, cannot work. They just literally can't. They're not able to.
I mean, a home is such an anchoring force. And if you don't have that, how do you get to that first step of finding stable employment?
It's just not really possible. Some folks, like I said, do pull it off, but not all. They are very much a minority. And then it runs into the issue, too, of prices are going up, wages are not.
That's true. And that's an undisputable stat that many of us are confronting right now. I mean, at the same time, though, what do you say to someone who believes that people who are relying on government services aren't doing enough to hold themselves accountable or responsible?
I think at this point, I am at the point where I just look at them and I smile and I hold out my hand and kind of go like this, like I want them to hand me something. And when they look confused, I say, okay, give me your phone, wallet, keys. Now, I'm going to pick you up. I'm going to drop you off in the middle of Detroit somewhere. You live like my clients do. And if you think I'm not crazy enough to follow you, you are wrong. I will make sure this is hard. I will not tell you where anything is. and I'm not going to let you access any kind of help other than me. You will give up within 12 hours when it comes time to find a place to sleep. Tell me it's easy now. And they usually shut up.
Cass, I'm wondering how this work has changed you.
It has definitely... I was already a compassionate person. Spoiler. You don't really get into this work unless you are. But it has made me more compassionate, and it's made me angrier. These are preventable problems. I shouldn't have a caseload. I shouldn't have a job in this field. This shouldn't be a problem. It is a preventable issue. And yet, here we are.
To that end, I mean, there are always going to be people who believe that needing government services means someone is lazy or that they're making a poor decision. Are you seeing a shift in that attitude? That is, as costs rise, are more people becoming sympathetic to those who need the help, who need government services to stabilize them or help them get out of poverty?
I think they are, which is good. That's objectively a good thing. There are some folks, I think, who are unfortunately just too set in their ways. This is the hill they will die on, and they mean it. But I think the folks that are finally coming to that realization, I'm glad you're here. Welcome. Too little, too late, as far as I'm concerned. I think it takes very little sense of compassion and critical thinking to get there beforehand, and I wish more people had that ability.
I mean, we've laid out some very deep systemic problems. So I think now it's important for us to think about some solutions. I mean, in the past, we've had you on our show to discuss a needs management map, which puts resources that people need, like food and housing and Narcan, in one place for them to find. How much could we reduce poverty if we made government resources easily available and more accessible?
I think I would have a difficult time clocking numbers off the top of my head, but I definitely think it would help, because sometimes folks don't know where to go or like what to do when they're in some kind of a crisis, or they have that like kind of, even if they don't say it or really think it, kind of in the back of their mind of like, well, I can't apply for SNAP. I don't really need it. Or I'm not like this person or that person, or, well, I'll figure it out. Like that pull yourself up by the bootstraps narrative, which we all know is nonsense and not possible. But I think if it was just easier and more open, more people would do it, or would understand that they need it, or have a better understanding of what it is. Like, we pay taxes to the government. They work for us. If they don't serve us and meet our needs, why are they here? Like, what are we paying them for?
What do you think the state of Michigan should be doing to feed and house people that you're working with, the folks who need food and shelter?
I think that there are definitely some reactive things that can be done, like making sure that like state-wise, we might not be able to match like funding that HUD could give, for example, but that like state-wise, we at least try and keep programs open, keep them functioning, and try to meet those immediate needs. But I also think there are some preventative things that could be done, like pushing rent caps, for example, across the state would put a lot more money back in people's pockets. Putting legislation in against price gouging, or I forget what exactly it was called, but it's in Maryland, I believe, they have some sort of similar law that I saw recently was passed, where the grocery stores were like impromptu changing prices like on their apps or whatever as they felt the demand was changing, and so people were paying more. But better protection and encouragement of unions to protect workers, encouraging like maybe different college or trade school programs, like building stability like that. A lot of the programs we have now aren't bad, but they are reacting to the problem. We need more things that prevent the problem.
And we also need more folks who are talking about the problem and helping us to be aware of it. Cass Tretyak has extensive experience helping people access social services to climb out of poverty. She's an outreach navigator at Community and Home Supports in Detroit. She's also in school for her master's in social work at Wayne State. Cass, thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for having us.
Up next, we'll turn to a local social services agency that's facing new challenges after the federal government cut its funding. That's next on the Metro. Stay with us.